All right, so today we're going deep on some pretty intense prophecy. Isaiah chapters 13 through 15. It's like pronouncements of doom, super dramatic language. You get a front row seat to all the anxieties and power struggles of the ancient Near East, but viewed, through this lens of divine judgment.
Yeah, and as we go through it, you'll see it's not just like, oh, poetic, flourish. It's really insightful, like how Isaiah is using prophecy to address the real political and social issues that were happening during his time.
Yeah. Okay, so we're starting with Isaiah 13, where Babylon is like front and center. The chapter opens with this incredible command, lift up a flag on a bare hill, raise your voice to them, wave the hand. I mean, it's like a theatrical summoning.
Right. It's Isaiah. He's setting the stage, grabbing your attention. He's not just delivering a message, he's performing it. This dramatic opening, it tells you right away something big is about to go down. Babylon, this huge empire, is about to face, well, the full force of divine wrath.
And the imagery he uses to describe that wrath, I mean, wow. Melting hearts, faces aflame, stars refusing to give light. It's not just destruction, it's cosmic chaos. It feels almost apocalyptic.
Exactly. And that's where Isaiah's genius comes in. He's tapping into this day of the Lord concept. It's all over the prophets. That idea of like divine judgment that's shaking the foundations of the world. But like, he's not just repeating that trope. He's weaving in very specific details to tailor the prophecy, to his audience.
So you're talking about the Medes,
Right.
right? He specifically names them as the instruments of Babylon's destruction. So why the Medes?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting, especially for, those of us who love history. So Isaiah's audience would have known the Medes, as this rising power, a possible threat to Babylon. So by naming them, Isaiah's not just offering some vague prediction of doom, right? He's grounding his prophecy in the political realities of the day. And that makes it even more impactful for, his listeners.
It's like a news bulletin from the future, predicting the rise of a new superpower. But some of the lines describing the fate of the inhabitants of Babylon, I mean, they are really hard-hitting. He talks about, infants being dashed to pieces, the Medes showing no compassion, even to children. It's brutal.
It's intense, but we can't read those verses alone. Remember, in Isaiah as a whole, Babylon is portrayed as like this nation just steeped in cruelty and arrogance. This isn't about God taking random vengeance. It's about portraying the consequences of their actions, the severity of divine justice as it was understood at the time.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that actions have consequences, even for powerful empires. And like he keeps going. The chapter ends with Babylon as like this desolate wasteland, fit only for wild animals, complete reversal of fortune.
Absolutely. Look at verses 19 through 22. Isaiah paints this like vivid picture of total desolation. This once great city, just rubble and, howling creatures. It's this powerful symbol of how fleeting power is. It's like you can almost hear Isaiah telling his audience, this is what happens to those who build their kingdoms on injustice and pride.
So Babylon gets taken down hard. But then in Isaiah 14, it takes a turn.
Yeah.
The tone shifts from judgment to, well, almost gloating.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about
Yeah.
that taunt, right? Against the king of Babylon. That's where we're going next. And it's a fascinating glimpse into the raw emotions that are behind these prophecies.
I'm all ears.
So, like, imagine, right? You're part of Isaiah's audience. You've lived under, like, the rule of Babylon, all this oppression. Now, picture hearing these words. It's not just about judgment. It's about vindication, like, a collective sigh of relief from everyone who suffered under Babylon.
Yeah, it's like we're at a victory party in ancient times. He even says that nature, like, rejoices. The cedars of Lebanon, the juniper trees. No more fear of the axe. It's like the whole world is taking a deep breath.
Isaiah is like tapping into this human desire for justice, for things to be made right. But he takes it even further. He focuses on the king himself. That's where the real sting of this taunt comes in, this ruler, right, who wanted to be like God. He ends up like lower than everyone else, even in death.
Total humiliation. In verses 9 and 10, you see him being mocked by the spirits of the dead. His power, gone. His pride, stripped away. What a contrast to, like, the glorious tomb he probably thought he'd get.
Right. And remember that image in verse 18 about kings being buried with honor? All that splendor. This king, he doesn't even get that. That's like the worst fate imaginable in their culture.
Then there's that image of the fallen star in verse 12. It's beautiful, but it's also, like, kind of brutal. Really captures the king's ambition and how he totally failed.
And what's so interesting is that Isaiah is probably referencing, like a Babylonian myth about a god trying to overthrow the high god. He's using their own mythology against them, turning their beliefs into a way to like really criticize their king's arrogance.
He even talks about the king's corpse in verse 19. No proper burial. It's a far cry from how other kings were buried.
Isaiah's making sure everyone gets the point.
Mhm.
This king's legacy, gone, erased. He'll only be remembered as, a warning. But Babylon and their king aren't the only ones facing judgment. Chapters 14 and 15, they shift focus to Assyria, Philistia, and Moab. Why include these nations?
Well, weren't they all like regional powers that had given Israel trouble at different times? I think Isaiah is showing that God's judgment isn't just, for one bad guy. Everyone is accountable.
Yeah, it's like he's setting up this pattern
Yeah.
of divine justice. No one's exempt, no matter how powerful they think they are.
And he doesn't hold back on the imagery for these nations either. Assyria shattered like a tree. Philistia choked by smoke, nowhere to run. Moab's cries of anguish, you can hear them for miles.
It's interesting, right? Each judgment, it fits the specific things they did wrong. It's not just a generic, like, you were bad, now you're punished. There's a reason for it, cause and effect.
So there's this deeper message here about what happens because of our actions, both as individuals and, as nations. It's not just punishment. It's about understanding, like, how our choices affect everything.
Yeah, it's like, even though these prophecies are so specific to, like, that time period, they still feel really relevant today. They're kind of holding up this mirror to, like, how we are as humans, the ways we deal with power, ambition. I mean, both individually and as the entire societies.
Right. That's what prophetic literature does, right? It speaks to those, like, core human struggles, the stuff that's always been there no matter what time period you're in. And these chapters in Isaiah, they really remind us that, power is seductive and wanting to be better than everyone else. And those are temptations we still face today. Yeah, and Isaiah doesn't soften the blow either. I mean, these nations, these huge empires, they face like total destruction. Their legacies are wiped out. It's kind of scary to think about.
It is. But there's also this, this glimmer of hope in all of this. Isaiah is not only predicting, like, doom and gloom, he's pointing to something bigger. A force for good that ultimately beats evil. So even when things are bad, even when it seems like injustice is winning, there's still a reason to believe that, justice will eventually prevail.
That's a powerful message, especially when you look around at the world, today. So much conflict, so much suffering. It's easy to get overwhelmed and like lose sight of that bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's why these prophecies are so important. They remind us that we're not alone in this struggle. There's this force for good that's at work. And ultimately, it's more powerful than, any human empire or ambition.
So what's the takeaway? What should we as, listeners be getting from this deep dive into Isaiah?
Well, I think the main takeaway is this. These chapters, sure, they're about nations and empires, but there's also a really powerful message in there for us as individuals. Think about that taunt against the king of Babylon. It's not just about one arrogant ruler. It's like a cautionary tale about the dangers of pride, ambition, wanting to be like God. It's a warning against getting too big for our britches.
And that's something everyone can relate to, right? Wanting to put ourselves first, trying to get power and recognition, trying to control things that we can't actually control. It's like this human struggle that's been around forever.
Right. And these chapters in Isaiah, they give us this like powerful way to deal with those temptations. They remind us that real fulfillment comes from, aligning ourselves with something bigger than ourselves, choosing humility over arrogance, compassion over selfishness. Justice over oppression.
So it's not just about reading these prophecies, it's about like living them.
Yeah.
Taking those principles, humility, compassion, justice, and making them part of our everyday lives.
Exactly. It's about seeing those tendencies in ourselves. Those little bits of pride, those impulses to protect ourselves, even if it hurts other people. And then choosing, a different path, a path that leads to a world that's more just and compassionate.
Wow, you've given us a lot to think about. Thanks for taking us through this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure. Really enjoyed exploring these powerful prophecies with you.
And to all of you listening, we'll leave you with this. How do you react when you see injustice, whether it's happening around the world or right in front of you? Do you speak up or do you stay silent? These chapters in Isaiah, they remind us that we all have a part to play in making the world a better place. Until next time.